Between 2016 and 2018, one man, sometimes posing as a maintenance worker or a health aide, murdered 22 elderly people, mostly residents of luxury senior living facilities. Once he gained access to their room or home, he would smother them with a pillow and then steal their jewelry and valuables. But because these people were in their 80s or beyond, no one suspected foul play. Not until one of them survived his attack, and by then, there were 22 women and men who were dead. But his number of murders could be much higher. This is the story of Billy Chemirmir, the Pillowcase Murders. Hey y'all, I'm Chris Calvert.
And I'm her husband, Rob Potter. Welcome to Hitched to Homicide.
For better or worse.
Till death do us part.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yes, welcome. And for our Hausa-speaking friends in northern Nigeria.
Okay.
Barakarazura.
I gotta hand it to you. You don't pick easy ones.
I'm running out of places.
By any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, man.
Well, wherever you're listening to Hitched to Homicide, hit that subscribe button, then like, rate, and review the podcast. That helps other people and other true crime aficionados to find us.
Yep.
And if you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button below. You can find us on Instagram at Hitched to Homicide or on X at H2H_podcast. And if you want true crime with us every single day of the week, please join our closed Facebook group, The In-Laws and Outlaws. Go to Facebook and type in H2H In-Laws and Outlaws, answer a few questions, and you are a part of the crew. Go join. I post photos and other information in there as well. And it's a good supportive group of true crime folks.
And it's all day, every day.
We also now have, I feel like I need a little horn. We also now have a Buy Me a Coffee link. If you want to send Rob some coffee.
Nice.
He drinks it every episode.
I do.
You can find that link in our show notes, and we appreciate anything you want to send our way, including your messages and your emails.
Yep.
Thank you for being with us each and every week.
Yes, I have to have my coffee daily. At least 2 cups.
We're always getting ready. I mean, we're just about ready to roll. And Rob will be like, oh, I got to go make my coffee.
Yeah.
I'm rolling my eyes.
I know.
Well, this case, Paramount Plus released a crime documentary just yesterday, a true crime doc just yesterday about this case.
Okay.
I had it in my stack. I brought it forward because it is finally going to get some attention. Before we get started, let me thank some sources. NBC, DFW in Dallas-Fort Worth, The Guardian, The Associated Press, Oxygen Channel, KHOU in Houston, The Dallas Morning News, Wikipedia, CBS News, People, Traditions Senior Living, Find a Grave, True Connection Communities, Preston Place Senior Living, Legacy.com, The Texas Observer, People.com, AARP, Medium.com, and last but certainly not least, secureourseniorssafety.org.
Wow, that was a mouthful.
It was a long list of sources this
All
week.
right. Well, you ready?
I am.
Let's do it.
Billy Chemirmir was born on December 8th, 1972 in Eldama Ravine, Baringo County, Kenya.
Okay.
According to Billy, he was the son of a wealthy farmer, and his mother was the second of his father's 3 wives. He said he had 28 siblings.
Wow.
I had a hard enough time sharing a sink with just one. I can't imagine 28 siblings getting ready to go in the morning.
Yeah, imagine that college bill.
Billy said, quote, yeah, I cannot. Billy said, quote, I was brought up in a good family. I didn't have any problems all my life, end quote. That's a lie.
Yeah.
He claimed that he was well-liked and a good student, and that he started working as a caregiver by caring for his elderly father, who at the time was 100 years old.
Wow.
It seems he came to the United States in the late 90s when his oldest sister got him and his two siblings to immigrate to America. I also read he came in 2003, but he continued to work as a caregiver alongside another job selling cars, and his family owned several senior living homes in North Texas, specifically McKinney and Allen, Texas.
So they were doing okay.
Well, I don't know if they're doing okay or not. I don't know how much of it is real, how much of it is a sham. I think that they had people who were home health aides that they sent out. So maybe it's a place where people came and stayed and spent their last days, or maybe they were sending, people out into other people's homes as home health aides.
Gotcha.
He married in 2004, but his wife filed for divorce 2 years later because he just up and disappears. He just that's like the ultimate ghosting.
Yeah.
But Billy seemed to have a problem drinking and then getting behind the wheel because he slapped with a DUI in 2010 in Addison, Texas, and again in 2011 in Dallas. Then in July of 2012, he's arrested on an assault charge, quote, assault on a female companion, end quote. He got in an argument with his then girlfriend after he came home drunk from a strip club. He punched her, beat her with a pot, and kicked her in the back. Then he grabbed a knife and he began stabbing a nearby love seat.
Wow. He hates these cans.
He hates something.
Yeah.
I mean, it was almost like he wanted to stab her, but instead he's stabbing this piece of furniture. He's stabbing this couch.
He showed some self-restraint.
Yeah, I don't think he has any.
Wow.
He has fines and short custodial sentences, meaning he went to jail for a bit for his DUIs and his assault charge.
Okay.
Now, it's not known when Billy went from assault to out-and-out murder, but in 2016, a pattern formed, one that police wouldn't catch on to for 2 whole years.
Wow.
Why? Because the victims are elderly people. On April 8th, 2016, Dr. Catherine Sinclair is living at Edgemoor Senior Living Apartments in Dallas, and these apartments are very, very nice. You can have a 1-bedroom or a 3-bedroom. It's all right on the Edgemoor property where there are 2 restaurants, a bar, private rooms for parties. There's a fitness center. There are yoga classes, swimming, water aerobics. There's a community greenhouse. There's an herb garden, a movie theater, a library, putting greens.
Man, sign me up.
It's a luxury senior living center where you have your own apartment and lots of people around you.
Nice.
And this is where Dr. Catherine Sinclair is living.
Okay.
Catherine was born on July 23rd, 1928 in New Athens, St. Clair County, Illinois. Her parents were Theodore and Louisa Heinrich Probst. Catherine graduated from St. Scholastic Academy in Chicago, Illinois in 1946 and went on to earn a Bachelor of Science from Loyola University in Chicago in 1952.
Okay.
Then from 53 until 56, she was a physical therapist in the U.S. Army in Fort Sam, Houston, Texas, Letterman Army Hospital in California, Fitzsimmons Army Hospital in Colorado, and Fort Chaffee in Arkansas.
Quite a pedigree.
Then she went to medical school at the University of Illinois and earned her MD in 1962. She interned at Charity Hospital in New Orleans, Louisiana, and was a resident in internal medicine. Then Dr. Sinclair was a staff physician at East Louisiana State Hospital in Jackson, Louisiana, and was a diplomat on the National Board of Medical Examiners.
Man.
She married Mitchell Sinclair of McMurray, Pennsylvania, on April 15, 1969, in Clinton, Louisiana, and they were married for almost 34 years. Dr. Sinclair was a nephrology fellow at the Veterans Administration Hospital from 1969 to 1970. Then she was an ER doctor. Then she was on staff at Centerville Clinic Memorial Hospital in Waynesburg. She's a staff physician at Western Center in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania. But after her husband Mitchell passes away on March 28, 2002, she stays in McMurray, Pennsylvania, but she never goes back to practicing medicine after his death. And she retires at the age of 74.
Wow.
She didn't have children. I don't know where she would have fit them in.
Yeah, exactly.
This woman is so highly accomplished.
Yeah.
But by July of 2014, Dr. Sinclair had moved to Dallas and had taken an apartment at Edgemere.
Okay.
Now, there's not much on the circumstances around Miss Catherine's death, which happened on April 8th, 2016, but she is found dead in her apartment at Edgemere. Her death would be determined natural and what is called an unattended death, meaning she was just by herself.
It's sad.
And you're going to hear that term a lot today because older people who live alone sometimes die alone, and they call that an unattended death.
Gotcha.
But also in April of 2016, Billy Chemirmir is spotted on the Edgemere property, and he's confronted by the staff of this community, and he tells them his name is Benjamin Koitaba. He's told to leave, and he's issued a criminal trespass warning. Police come to him, and they're like, "We're not taking you in, but don't come back."
Yeah, get out of here.
Just a month later, on November 14th, 2016, at Edgemere, 91-year-old Phyllis Payne is found lying in her robe on her bed. It appears she's died peacefully in her sleep. Phyllis Weaver Payne is born on September 28th, 1924, to Grace and O.J. Weaver in Fort Worth, Texas. She was a graduate of Texas Christian University, and then she met and married Lawrence Payne. He was the love of her life. These two would be married for 66 years.
Wow.
In 1959, they settled in Dallas and raised their family, a son, Keith, and a daughter, Lauren. Phyllis was an interior designer. She had her own business, Phyllis Payne Interiors. And she was busy. Lots of organizations. She played bridge. She liked to garden. She liked to travel. But in 2011, Lawrence died, and she didn't want to live in a big house all by herself. She'd actually been living in the same house for 46 years.
Okay.
And she wanted to move to Edgemere. She had friends who lived there in Dallas, Texas. Phyllis would host the bridge club at Edgemere, and she had lots of good friends, but Phyllis, like many older women, would hide her jewelry in a coffee can. And according to her daughter, she always had. So when her daughter Lauren is told that her mother has peacefully passed away in her bed at the age of 91, she's shocked. I mean, 91 is certainly a full life, but Phyllis is very vibrant for her age, and Lauren can't wrap her head around it.
Right.
But Lauren's husband is battling cancer. She's got 3 children as well. So when she goes to her mother's apartment, this is a woman with the weight of the world on her shoulders to begin with. And what she finds is that her mother's jewelry is gone, along with her mom's sterling silver flatware.
Yeah.
But she's really distraught over her mother, right? So she's concerned, but she's not dwelling on anything. She asks the people at Edgemere, who was in with her mom and who had access to that room.
Right.
2 weeks later, on June 5th, Edgemere resident Phoebe Perry dies. Phoebe Sherwood Perry is born on April 1st, 1922 in Dallas, Texas. She's the widow of Russell Perry. Phoebe was found dead in her apartment on June 5th, 2016. She's 94.
Wow.
And when she dies, there are no red flags.
Right.
No foul play is suspected. Yeah. She's 94.
Right.
And it's an unattended death.
Okay.
In her lifetime, she helped to build the SPCA of Texas Center in McKinney. Nice. She had a great love for animals.
Nice.
I thought Scotty would like to hear that. And before anybody emails me and says, "You're just going through these people's lives," yes, I am.
Yeah.
Because these are innocent people whose lives were taken from them, even though it was at the end of their life. No one seemed to care except for their families.
Right.
Then on June 18th, 2016, a man is seen creeping around Edgemere, and the staff sees it's the same guy they had to call the police on last month. And when the officers arrive, they get their hands on Billy Chemirmir, and when they search him this time, he did get a warning.
Right.
They search him, and they find that he had not one, but 2 IDs on him. One under his real name, Billy Chemirmir, and another under his alias name, Benjamin Koitaba.
Yeah. He
also has 3 outstanding arrest warrants.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry, Billy.
Yeah.
He was charged with criminal trespass and providing officers with a false name. And following this arrest, he's sentenced to 70 days in the county jail.
Okay.
but he is released on good behavior after just 12 days. 12 days. He's released on June 30th. And now it's time for Billy to keep his butt out of Edgemere, right? They've made him twice. They know who he is. They're kind of already on the lookout for him.
Right.
Now, mind you, they have no idea that he's got anything to do with the deaths at Edgemere. And why would they? They just think it's, sort of a group of their people who are dying back to back to back.
Sure.
July 18th, 2016, not long after Billy is released on good behavior, he makes his way to Tradition Prestonwood Independent Living Facility.
Okay.
So he's let out for good behavior on June 30th. And 19 days later, he's shown up at a different independent living facility.
He's looking for new victims.
That's exactly what he's doing. It's located in North Dallas. It's a premier property for seniors to have independence. This place has 24-hour concierge. It's got the housekeeping, the spa, the barber, the fitness center, the movie theater, all of those same things. There's granite countertops in these apartments and marble bathrooms.
Wow. It's almost like those people that they do the year-round cruise.
Yeah.
And they just live on the cruise line.
Yeah.
Which I think is a great idea.
I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? I've heard this place, Tradition Prestonwood, described as a college campus. It is 15 minutes north of Edgemere. He's not going too far.
Yeah.
This is where Joyce Abramowitz lived on the 4th floor with her friends. They were called the 4th Floor Girls. And they like to hang out together and to have a glass of red wine together each night. Now, Rob and I have both had loved ones who've had to be like in a nursing home or whatever, where they have friends. And, I just hope that someday when I'm older, I get to hang out with all my friends too.
Yep.
Joyce Rena Scheinfeld Abramowitz was born on October 25th, 1933 in Israel. Her parents were Misha and Belle. She married her husband. His name is actually Israel. And together they have 3 boys, Matthew, Mark, and Paul.
Okay.
She and her husband would also have 8 grandchildren. But Joyce is found dead on July 20th, 2016 in her apartment. No foul play is suspected. She's 82 years old. It was an unattended death, but some of her valuables are missing. Also living on the 4th floor is 83-year-old Juanita Purdy. Juanita and her 3rd husband, both of her first and second husbands died of cancer, they moved together to Tradition Prestonwood in 2015 when it opened for the very first time.
Okay.
And when her 3rd husband passed away, she moved into a smaller unit and onto the 4th floor. And every day, Juanita would get the newspaper delivered to her front door. She would read it. She would have a hot cup of tea. She would eat some cereal for breakfast. And then she would go to her exercise class. Now, it's Friday night, July 30th, just 12 days after Joyce is found dead, and Juanita's out to dinner with her friends. The next night, July 31st, is a special 7-course dinner at Tradition Prestonwood.
Wow.
And she's looking forward to this dinner very much. She's told the people the night before how much she's looking forward to this dinner.
Mm-hmm.
But when she doesn't show up that Saturday night, her friends are worried, and they call the staff to do a wellness check. And this is when the staff finds Juanita dead in her bed in her room. It's an unattended death. Now, before Juanita's daughter Diane can get to Tradition Prestonwood, they move her mother's body, but they tell her that her mom died in bed in her sleep. But Diane, the daughter, is looking around her mother's apartment, and nothing looks right. I mean, it looks hinky.
Okay.
Her mother always took her rings off at night before going to bed, and she put them in a little crystal heart next to the sink. I mean, we all have our routines.
Right.
And, when you're in your 80s and 90s, you're pretty stuck with them.
Sure.
I'm in my 50s, and I'm kind of stuck with my routine.
You and me both.
But the jewelry is gone. And when the staff tells her that she died in her sleep, probably a stroke or a heart attack, she tells them, well, that's not so, because her newspaper is on the counter, unread, and her teacup is full, but it's cold. So she was up that Saturday morning. And the staff and the EMS say, well, maybe she felt bad, so she just laid down, and that's when she passed away. And Juanita's daughter is like, this just doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah.
Because on top of all of that, $27,000 worth of her mother's jewelry is gone. $27,000 worth of jewelry.
Wow.
Days later, 83-year-old Leah Corkin, who is also a fourth-floor girl, she tells her daughter, Mary Jo, MJ Jennings, quote, they're dropping like flies, end quote. Leah Alice Corkin was born on August 13th, 1933 in Rock Island, Illinois. She married John Daniel Corkin, who was in the Navy. They lived in Mexico, Brazil, London, and Sun City Center, Florida. They had 3 children, Lisa, Matthew, and Mary Jo, who goes by MJ. Leah loved her family. She loved volunteering for the USO. She's a golfer. But when her husband died in 2009, they'd been married for 55 years, and she moved to Dallas to be near her daughter, Mary Jo, and her husband.
Okay.
Leah was a huge football fan. She was a fan of the same NFL team I'm a fan of.
The Green Bay Packers.
The Green Bay Packers. Leah and her daughter, MJ, had this routine. MJ would wake up, get her coffee, then call her mom between 9 and 9:30. Her sister, Lisa, would call late in the afternoon to check on their mom. They sort of tag-teamed, checking in on mom. And on August 19th, Leah and MJ speak during their normal 9 to 9:30 a.m. call. But by lunchtime, when the oldest daughter calls, Leah can't be found. And they know her schedule for that day. She was getting her hair done at noon.
Right.
Her daughters start leaving messages for their mother on the machine. They're worried. So they call the staff at Tradition, and they ask them, will you just go check on mom. Go check on our mother.
Yeah.
The staff knocks on her door, and when she doesn't answer, they let themselves in, and they find Leah face down on the floor. And when MJ, her daughter, hears that her mom is unresponsive, she rushes to Tradition, and they have a sheet over her mother's body, and they wouldn't allow her to see her mom.
Why?
They made her wait until the police came. And when they take off this sheet, MJ notices right away her mother's wedding ring was missing, a ring that she never took off. And the walker that she used was on the other side of the kitchen. And her freshly styled hair was a mess. And there were makeup smudges on her pillowcase. And they tell MJ that her mother just probably had a stroke. That's what they're saying to her. And just like the 2 previous deaths, nothing about her mother's death seems right. It doesn't sit right with her. And she wants to know, where are my mother's rings? She never took them off.
Right.
And the police deem her death from natural causes an unattended death, even though she's the 3rd death in 2 months where the families think it's not right, that this death didn't add up.
Yeah.
9 days later, on August 28th, 2016, Margaret White, who goes by Peggy, is also found dead at her Tradition Prestonwood apartment. Her death is also thought to be of natural causes. I couldn't find anything about Peggy's life or her family. If I had, I would have told you all about her. But they did say that hers was also an unattended death. 4 days later, Solomon Henry Spring, they called him Saul. He's found dead in his apartment at Tradition Prestonwood. Saul was born on September 28, 1927 in New York, to Max and Minnie Rose Spring. Saul is the only male victim that we know of. He was 89 years old. It was said that he died of natural causes, and it was an unattended death.
Is anyone seeing a pattern here? I mean...
Well, here's the thing. They're in their 80s and 90s.
Yeah, I know, but still.
Exactly, which is why their families are like, this isn't right.
Yeah.
Even though the people who run the place are like, they're old.
Yeah.
You know, people have strokes. They have heart attacks. And most of these people all had a very clean bill of health. Another resident who had an apartment on the 4th floor of Tradition Prestonwood is Norma French. Norma Wilson French had a sparkle in her eyes and a smile that all knew her adored. She was a native of Galveston, Texas, and she's born on August 14th, 1931 to Charles and Rosalie Wilson. She graduated from Ball High School and then attended the University of Texas in Austin, where she was a member of the Kappa Alpha Theta sorority and received a degree in elementary education. Norma was a school teacher. I love teachers.
Yeah.
Love teachers. If you're a teacher out there, hats off to you.
And her name was Norma.
And her name was Norma, just like Rob's mom.
Norma Jean.
Norma Jean. But this Norma's a school teacher, but she loved being a wife and mother. After college, she dedicated her life to her husband, R.L., and her children, Steve, Laurie, Mike, and her youngest daughter, Ellen, who lived in Indianapolis. And her husband, R.L., died of melanoma in 2006. And Norma actually lived in the house where they raised their children for another few years. But by 2014, she's moved to Tradition Prestonwood and onto the 4th floor with the party girls. Norma loves living at Tradition Prestonwood. She's still driving. She's going to Bible study twice a week.
Good for her.
Yeah, I want to be driving when I'm 90. I don't know if everybody else wants me to be driving when I'm 90. My point is this. This is an active woman who's still got a very full life.
Yeah.
In early October of 2016, she's visiting her daughter Ellen in Indianapolis, and just like Leah Corkin, she has a bit of a premonition. And while she's visiting her daughter, she tells her, quote, "I don't know what you're going to do without me," end quote. When she gets back to Texas, she had planned on going to the University of Texas football game, but she's decided she's not going to go to the game versus Oklahoma, but she was going to watch it. It's Saturday morning, October 8th. She goes to the cafeteria to get a big salad to eat during the first half of the football game.
Okay.
We know this because she tells her daughter, Ellen. But when Norma's other daughter, Laurie, tries to get in touch with her, she can't get Norma to answer the phone. When they check on the 85-year-old, she's dead. The police arrive, as does Norma's daughter, Laurie. They tell Norma's family that it's likely a heart attack or a stroke. But while Laurie is on the phone with her sister, Ellen asks her sister, take a picture, take a photo of this scene before they move Mom's body.
Yeah.
And part of that was she needed closure because she was so far away in Indiana. And Laurie and Ellen's brother had died, and Ellen never got to see her brother's body, and she wanted that type of closure.
Right.
Now, Norma had donated her body to the University of Texas Southwestern. So when they show up for her body, Norma's daughter says, check for her jewelry before they take her body away.
Right.
Norma doesn't have her wedding rings on. Rings that she could not get off of her finger.
Oh.
And Norma's salad is sitting in the kitchen, untouched. Her daughter, Ellen, rushes to Texas and sees the salad sitting on the counter. There's blood stain on the carpet. And not only were her mother's wedding rings missing, she had a cross necklace from Italy that she always wore, and that was missing, along with $600 in cash from Norma's wallet. Now, Norma's daughter goes to the staff and is like, where's my mom's stuff? Her valuables, her money, her jewelry.
Yeah.
Was it your staff here at Tradition Prestonwood? Was it the EMS? Was it the fire department? And the director of the facility calls her the next day to say, we've had 2 prior deaths. There were more. But she admits to 2 prior deaths and thefts.
Wow.
So they report it to the police that it was the paramedics or the firemen who had stolen Norma's jewelry and her money. On October 15th, there's a service held at Tradition Prestonwood for Norma. And while the service is happening, the EMS show up because there has been another unattended death.
Good grief.
87-year-old Glenna Day tells her daughter Cheryl that, quote, people are dying all around me, end quote. She tells her daughter, quote, I'm thinking I should move because my friends are dying, end quote.
Wow.
Glenna even goes to her own doctor for a checkup after her girlfriends are dropping like flies around her.
Right.
Glenna Jewel Island was born on April 22nd, 1929 in Tulia, Texas. She grew up on a dairy farm, and she graduated from high school and then went on to secretarial school, going to work for Midas International. She meets and marries J. Burt Day and has 2 children, Cheryl and Gregory. Glenna's husband would die in 1980 after having polio since the age of 7. He actually died of emphysema because he was a smoker. He was only 52.
Wow.
And at that time, she retires from Midas after working there for 25 years. This is when she started a new phase of her life. She started snow skiing, scuba diving, mountain biking, and traveling the world.
Wow.
She biked and skied and experienced life all over the world. She never met a stranger. Glenna is also a very skilled painter. She's very creative. She loved to sew. She loved to make things. She is also still driving at the age of 87 years young.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually a story where she even took an employee of Tradition Prestonwood to the hospital in the middle of the night.
Wow.
And she stayed all night at the hospital with that person and then took them home the next morning.
Wow. Good for her.
These are salt of the earth, good people, good women.
Yeah.
Just the day before, on October 14th, Glenna had been to a dance. She even drove her friends to the dance with her. And the next morning, she wakes up early because with her artisan skills as a painter, she's going to mend a canvas for a friend and then match the colors behind it. There's a hole in the canvas.
Wow.
So she's put canvas behind it and she's matching the colors. She's painting this.
So she's even doing restoration.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
She's 87.
Wow.
At 11 a.m. on Saturday, October 15th, she speaks with her daughter Cheryl, and they make plans to go on a lunch date where Glenna is so busy, she has to try to work her daughter into her schedule.
I'll pencil you in.
I know. I hope that's me. But Glenna doesn't show for dinner on Saturday night when she's supposed to, and she's missing again for breakfast on Sunday, October 16th, before church. And her friend calls her apartment, but Glenna isn't answering. So she goes to the front desk and asks them to please check on her.
Mm-hmm.
They find Glenna dead in her room. It looked like she'd finished the painting for her friend and then laid down on her bed for a nap, passing away peacefully. It's an unattended death.
Right.
But the scene was all wrong, according to Glenna's daughter, Cheryl. Her mother had a very expensive bedspread, a $400 expensive bedspread.
Wow.
And she didn't lay on it or sit on it. I wouldn't either.
Yeah.
She always turned it down. And now she's laying on top of it. And she's wearing her painter's smock. And she still has paint on her fingers. And she would have never gotten on the bed that way.
Right.
Not to mention, Glenna's head isn't even on a pillow. And according to her daughter, her face seemed odd, that she didn't look like she was at peace. Glenna's jewelry was locked in a safe. She had arthritis, and her joints were so swollen that she couldn't wear her rings, but she had a Rolex watch, and it was missing from its case. And all of the cash in Glenna's wallet was gone. Glenna Day was 87 years old. 2 weeks later, on October 30th, 2016, Doris Gleason is found on the floor of her apartment. Her daughter notices that a guardian angel necklace was missing from around her mother's neck, and she never took it off. And all the cash is gone from her mother's purse. 2 weeks later, on November 13th, 2016, there's a report of a suspicious person. The police report doesn't name anyone, but the description is dead on Billy Chemirmir. He's seen at Tradition Prestonwood several times, saying he is checking pipes for leaks. And the report is that this well-dressed man is walking around telling these people that he's there as a maintenance worker. He's in a coat and tie, and he's carrying a leather satchel. Okay. And they can see him on the CCTV inside the buildings. Mm-hmm. Now, after this, Tradition Prestonwood ramps up their security at the request of the Dallas Police Department, not on their own, but at the request of Dallas PD. And then the suspicious deaths stop. And these families are trying to move on, but nobody has answers for them about their mother's death or their father's death,
right,
or their parents' belongings.
Sure.
Ellen French House, Norma French's daughter, gets an update on the EMS and the firemen stealing her mother's jewelry and cash. And the police interview these guys who say their hands are clean. They didn't steal anything.
Right.
And Sergeant Davis with the Dallas Police Department tells her that it was, quote, an inside job, end quote. And he tells her something is fishy at Tradition Prestonwood. Okay. And that is an understatement.
It took him this long to figure that one out?
Oh, it's going to take him even longer to figure this out. Oh. But I think the detective is still of the mindset that these people were dying of natural causes, and then someone from inside the facility was stealing from them.
Right.
September 2nd, 2017, Helen Ann Lee, she lives in Frisco, Texas, at the Parkview Senior Living Center. Parkview is again another upscale senior living community. Helen was born in Pittsburgh on August 18, 1935. She was a 1952 grad of Clayton High School in St. Louis and attended Wash U to study fashion design. She married Bob Lee on November 24, 1956, and moved to Texas in 2012 to be near her daughter and grandchildren. She was found dead in her apartment at Parkview Senior Living Center of natural causes. It was an unattended death, and some of her jewelry and her property are missing. Also at Parkview Senior Living Center is Marilyn Cardillo Bixler. Marilyn was born and raised in Youngstown, Ohio, and was the only child of Anthony and Hilda Cardillo. Marilyn was a singer. She actually met her husband, Chuck, through her voice teacher. She attended Westminster College in New Wilmington, Pennsylvania, where she studied music. And after college, she married Chuck, and these two were together for 62 years until he passed away in 2010. They had 5 children together, and after her kids are grown, she goes to work as an investment banker at Bank of America.
Really?
In 2015, she moves back to Texas to be near her family. She loved to read. She played bridge. She had 2 dogs, Carly and Cody.
Oh, we had a Cody.
We had a Cody once upon a time.
Yeah. She was crazy.
Yeah. She was a Jack Russell, and she lost her mind a lot.
Yeah.
On September 17th, just 15 days after Helen Lee is found dead at Parkview, Marilyn Bixler is also found dead in her home of natural causes. It's an unattended death, and property is missing. Then 6 weeks later, on October 29th, 2017, a 93-year-old woman at Parkview is attacked. He has knocked her from her walker and smothered her with a pillow. But when she comes to, she calls the police, and she tells them, a well-dressed man came to my door. He said he was a maintenance man. She told him she didn't need anything worked on, but he forced his way into her home, knocked her down, and tried to smother her. He took her jewelry, and he left. But this nameless woman cannot give a full description of this perpetrator.
Really?
That's called foreshadowing.
Oh, here we go.
Yes. So this is Billy's MO. He poses as a maintenance worker or a home health aide.
In a suit.
Carrying a leather bag.
Wow.
He forces himself inside their homes in these luxury senior living communities. He tells them to lie on the bed, so it looks like they've died there. And then he smothers them with a pillow. And when he thinks they're gone, he loots their home and takes their jewelry. And he's just getting started, folks. He's going to pawn this jewelry off. He's going to sell it.
Wow.
As it quiets down at Parkview, it gets suspicious at a place called Preston Place in Plano, Texas. And Preston Place is just like Tradition Prestonwood and Edgemere. It's an upscale resort-style gated living community, restaurants, bistros, clubhouses, libraries, chef-prepared meals.
Wow.
And living there is Minnie Campbell in apartment 1415. She is found dead on October 31st, 2017. Again, it's real natural causes, an unattended death with property missing. 5 weeks later, Billy murders 79-year-old Diane Delahunty on December 5th, 2017, also living at Preston Place in Plano. Diane Delahunty was found dead in her apartment 3 days after having lunch with her adult children. Her daughter found her on the floor, and the family thinks she fell out of bed. But then they notice that her jewelry is missing. Her rings are missing. Next is Mamie Del Maya. By the way, these ladies have just the most spectacular names. Mamie, I love this. Mamie Del Maya.
Yeah.
3 days after Diane, Mamie is found dead on December 8th, 2017. It's an unattended death with property missing. Then 2 days later, an unknown victim dies at Preston Place on December 10th, 2017. She's a Jane Doe to this case, obviously not to her family. All of these are unattended deaths with property missing.
And still no one sees a pattern in any of this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then Billy goes back to Tradition Prestonwood, and he murders Doris Wasserman 2 days before Christmas on December 23rd, 2017. Each time, these deaths are ruled unattended and natural deaths.
Wow.
Now, in October of 2016, a couple by the name of Carolyn and Jack McPhee are in need of home health care. Jack has a neurological disease that keeps his mind sharp as a tack, but his body's not working. It's not Lou Gehrig's disease, but I guess it presents as something similar.
Okay.
But their regular home health aide is no longer working with them. And the agency, which is called Griswold, sets up the placement of a fill-in for a home health care aide. His name is Benjamin Koyabata.
Oh, man.
A.K.A. Billy Chemirmir.
Wow.
He wasn't like the other aides that came to the house. He was a loner. He kept to himself. He didn't really speak with the family. And remember, this guy isn't a licensed home health aide that I can find anywhere.
Right.
He just thinks he knows how to take care of people because he took care of his dad when he was 100, I suppose.
Well, he's taking care of people, but not in a good way.
Not in a good way.
Yeah.
Exactly. And if, my mother was in hospice and we had some amazing people who were with her. We had care with her 24/7.
Yeah.
And these women, they came in shifts and they were like our family.
Yeah.
And what they are saying about this is that Billy, his son, is saying that Billy wasn't around anybody, kept to himself, didn't talk to anybody.
Yeah, and that surprises anyone.
Yeah. But he's there for Jack Nelson. But his wife is Carolyn Nelson. Carolyn Nelson was born on December 1st, 1936 in Spokane, Washington to Carl and Hazel Nelson.
Okay.
She attended Chelan Falls High School in Washington State. She graduated there in 1958. And Carolyn went on to Washington State University, where she was a member of Gamma Phi Beta, and she earned her degree in education. While at Wazoo, she met and married her husband, Jack. And they're both big fans of Washington State University sports.
Okay.
Later, Carolyn returns to school to work on her master's degree in adult and continuing education at Texas Women's University. She has 2 boys, Scott and Robert, but Carolyn needs help with her husband. She just can't take care of him on her own. She's 82. She's a spry 82,
right?
But she's still 82.
Sure.
On December 31st, 2017, Carolyn doesn't show up for church, Preston Hollow United Methodist Church in Dallas. It's a community that she's very ingrained in, and she doesn't show up for church, and then she doesn't show up at her son Scott's house either. She was supposed to go over and watch the Cowboys game with them. And Scott looks at his cell phone, and her cell phone says that her location is at her house. She's home.
Okay.
Scott goes to his parents' home and finds his mother face down in the bedroom, an arm over her eyes and her eyeglasses askew. There are bloodstains on the door handle in the bedroom and on her glasses. But the police come and say, well, there's no trauma. And they believe that she had a nosebleed, that she died of an aneurysm, and she probably had a nosebleed because of that.
Wow.
Even though there are bloody tissues in the bathroom, not where they find the body.
Right.
And police are like, end of story. She's 82. This kind of thing happens.
Yeah.
Days later, Scott realizes that his mother's jewelry is gone. Her wedding ring is missing.
Right.
And police tell him, well, there wasn't an indentation on her finger, so she wasn't wearing it that day. What?
Oh, man.
But another diamond ring is missing from Carolyn's belongings, along with her coat. Her, black puffy coat is missing. And when he brings this up to the police, they tell him, well, old people hide their valuables all the time. But Scott is thinking the same thing the other daughters have said, that the EMS or the police or the firemen have stolen my mom's stuff.
Yeah.
Now, by the time 2018 rolls around, January 2018, Benjamin has moved on. Billy Chemirmir, meaning Billy Chemirmir, has moved on.
Right.
And Carolyn's husband, Jack, has passed away. He passed away in April of 2017. But it's not until then when their son Scott is cleaning out his parents' home.
Okay.
Of all of the items that he keeps, of all the records they have,
Right.
the one thing he keeps is the home health care people, Griswold, that's the placement agency. And the name on the list is Benjamin Koyabata.
Yeah.
A.K.A. Billy Chemirmir.
Billy, yeah. Okay.
Now, while Carolyn's family's sorting through her things, Rosemary Curtis, another woman living in a private home, is also found dead. Rosemary's husband, Dave, had died on June 27, 2017 at home. They had, I believe, 5 grown children. And according to Dave's obit, he was terminally ill. And I'm gathering from this is how Billy Chemirmir came to know Rosemary and where she lived. Rosemary will be found dead in her home on January 19th, 2018, 6 months after her husband passes away. It's an unattended death, of course, and her property is missing. Then 2 weeks later, on January 31st, 2018, 88-year-old Mary Sue Brooks is found dead in Custer Trail condominiums in Richardson, Texas, just down the road from Plano. Mary Sue Mason was born on April 18th, 1930 in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Her parents were William and Edna Hughes Mason. She married Quentin Thomas Brooks. You know, I've never known a Quentin other than Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
And that caught my eye. But she married Quentin.
Well, there was one other Quint, and I'm sure his name was Quentin.
Who?
Jaws.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But she marries Quentin Thomas Brooks, who preceded her in death in May of 2007. And this time, Billy's actually stalking his victim at the local Walmart.
Jeez.
He sees her at Walmart. He follows her. Then he follows her into the parking lot and her car all the way home. Then he forced his way into her home, smothered her with a pillow, and stole from her. And missing from Mary Sue Brooks's home was her safe, most of her jewelry, including wedding rings and a coral necklace that she always wore. But one thing police noticed when they were called by Mary Sue's grandson, there were Walmart bags that had not been unpacked. Mary Sue was alive at Walmart at 11:51 on January 30th.
Right.
They can see her on surveillance video.
Right.
And then they found her dead with the groceries still out and her possessions missing. But police initially say she died of natural causes. Really?
Oh, my gosh.
Really?
I want to know what detective school they went to.
Well, and I want you to know this. The Dallas area police have 750 unattended deaths a year, approximately.
Yeah.
How many of them belong to Billy Chemirmir?
Yeah.
How many of them is he a part of?
I'm sure there was a lot.
On March 4th, 2018, 80-year-old Martha Williams is living in the Preston Place retirement community. This is the same place where he murdered Minnie Campbell, Diane Delahunty, and Mamie Del Maya. Martha Williams' daughter would find her. Her mother's wedding ring was missing, and there was an odd stain on her mother's pillow. But Martha's silver is also gone as well. Candlesticks and serving platters, all gone.
Okay.
Martha went to SMU, where she was a tri-delt, and after meeting her husband on a blind date, she married the love of her life, Frank Williams Jr. Frank's sister actually set them up on a blind date.
Okay.
They marry on November 28th, 1958 in San Antonio and were married for 42 years until Frank passed away in 2001. Martha was a teacher in the late 50s and early 60s, teaching science in the classroom and on public television. She loved art and design, and Martha and Frank had 2 daughters, Lindsay and Holland. When Martha is found by her daughter, the authorities rule it as natural causes, an unattended death. Martha was 80 years old. Now, just days later on March 9th, Miriam Nelson is found dead in her apartment at Preston Place.
Okay.
He seems to kill in the same spot and then move on.
Yeah.
And then maybe go back.
Yeah.
And then he's trying to mix it up a little bit. Miriam Smith, who goes by Nellie, is born on May 9th, 1936 to the Reverend Roy and Letitia Huey Smith in Waco, Texas.
Okay.
She goes to Waco High School and then Decatur Baptist College. She could play the piano by ear, and she sang in a trio growing up in her father's church. She met and married Alan, the love of her life. They moved for his job a lot, but settled in Granbury, Texas.
Okay.
She had 2 children, David and Karen. Her husband passed away in 2015. He was a vet and worked for the USDA.
Okay.
Not a veteran, but a veterinarian.
Right.
These 2 were married for 59 years. On a side note, she was a huge Texas A&M football fan. I love these ladies who are football fans because I am too.
Yep.
When she's found, her belongings have been stolen. It's ruled a death by natural causes. And of course, it's an unattended death.
And of course, things are stolen.
Yeah. It's the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah, I know.
And these theft charges are piling up on these police officers' desks.
Yeah.
But they're not putting it together.
Yeah.
March 18th, 2018, Ann Conklin is killed in her apartment at Preston Place Retirement Community. So this is 9 days after Nellie. Ann Meredith Valentine is born on April 25th, 1935 in Hollywood, California, to Harold and Ora Mae Valentine. She had 2 younger sisters, Sue and Mary Jo. She grew up in New Jersey and went to Pembroke College, which is now Brown University.
Oh, wow.
But she finished college at the University of Michigan. You know, one thing that I notice about all these women, they're all very well educated.
Yeah.
They've all had such amazing lives.
Yeah.
And they're all just in their late 80s and 90s, and they're still just out there doing everything they want to do. They're just living life to the fullest.
Yeah, they're enjoying life.
She married her first husband, Frederick Stucker Jr., and raised 4 children, Frederick III, Gloria, Jennifer, and Susan. She and Fred divorced, but they remained friends. She went back to school and got her MBA while working in commercial real estate, and she also taught 7th grade and worked as a paralegal. This is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
After moving to South Carolina, she met her second husband, Warren Conklin. These 2 traveled and loved spending time together, and he passed away in 2006. She loved to travel. She had visited every continent, including a trip to Antarctica.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
She is found in her apartment in Preston Place. It's ruled that her death is from natural causes, but she is missing property. Her stuff has been stolen.
Right.
And they just say it's another unattended death.
And she was old, so she just hid things.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, whatever.
And like I said, these theft reports are piling up on the Dallas and Plano, Texas Police Department's desks.
Sure.
All older people, most of whom died at these expensive retirement communities where people have money and jewelry. But they're not putting it together.
Well, that's what I said. What I said earlier, you know, what detective school did these guys go to?
Yeah, they don't put it together until March 19th, 2018. And I want you to remember, this is 2 years after we have our first known victim of Billy Chemirmir, Dr. Sinclair.
Right.
91-year-old Mary Bartell is shopping at the exact same Walmart where Billy stalked, followed, and murdered Mary Sue Brooks. He sees Mary Bartell. He follows her. She's driving, by the way. She's 91.
Wow.
Driving, shopping by herself at Walmart.
She's like Nina.
That's my grandmother who lived to be 100. Yeah. Well, she drove until she backed into a police car.
Well, that'll stop
That'll
you.
pretty much do it.
Yeah. My mom stopped when she turned a corner and ran over a stop sign.
I think that's when they start taking your license away. Yeah.
That's where, Mom, we need to talk about this.
Yeah, exactly. But Mary Bartell's 91, and she's out tearing up the roads, going to Walmart, buying what she needs.
Right.
But Billy Chemirmir is following her, and he follows her back to Preston Place Retirement Center. He knocks at her door, and when she opened it, he forces his way into her apartment. He's wearing green rubber gloves. Quote, "I knew I was in grave danger," end quote.
Wow.
He told her to, quote, "go to the bed. Don't fight me," end quote.
Jeez.
Then he put a pillow over her face until she lost consciousness, using, quote, "all of his weight to keep me from breathing," end quote.
Wow.
She did pass out. Mary Bartell does pass out, and her heart did stop. But Mary has a pacemaker with a defibrillator. And when her friend finds her, she calls 911. And when Mary comes to, she realizes that she's missing her wedding and her engagement ring. And she tells the EMS and the police everything.
Wow.
Then she tells them an exact, perfect description
Nice.
of Billy Chemirmir.
Very nice.
The man who'd been arrested for trespassing at Edgemere 2 years prior and was the subject of suspicious activity at Tradition Prestwood.
Right.
On March 20th, 2018, the very next day, police stake out Billy Chemirmir's apartment in Dallas. All they need is to see him because they've run his name through the system and this dude has outstanding warrants.
Right.
Now, nowhere could I find the nature of these outstanding warrants, but they're going to pick him up and bring him in no matter what.
Okay.
And while they're waiting for him to come back to his Dallas apartment, Billy is back at Walmart stalking his final victim. Lou Tai Harris. She's originally from Vietnam. Rob's going to love this. She actually escaped from Saigon by helicopter from the American Embassy and taken to a U.S. aircraft carrier in the South China Sea during the fall of Saigon.
Yeah, that famous photograph of on top of the embassy in there. Yeah, wow.
She was one of those people.
That's crazy.
Her family settles in Dallas. And one of the things Lou loved to do was to give out $2 bills. My grandmother loved to do this too. I haven't seen a $2 bill in I don't know how long, but she would go to the bank and get stacks of them.
Really?
And she loved to give out $2 bills to people.
That's great.
On March 20th, Billy sees Lou in Walmart and begins to follow her, just like he'd done with 91-year-old Mary Bartels. Store surveillance shows him checking out near her and following her out to the parking lot, where he follows her car all the way to her home in his silver Nissan. This is around 4:30 p.m.
Right.
He follows her all the way to her home in Dallas. When he arrives back at his apartment around 6 p.m., police watch him toss a red jewelry box into the apartment dumpster where he lives. He gets back into his car, and then the police are on him. They walk up to him. They stop him. In the front seat of his car is a clear Ziploc bag completely full of jewelry.
Oh, man.
And a set of keys. They were to Lou Tai Harris's front door.
Wow.
They dig this red jewelry box out of the dumpster, and they find on the box the name, Lou Tai Harris. And they get on the horn and they alert Dallas police, who rush to her house. The door to her home is locked. They forcibly enter and they find her dead in the bedroom. A pillow by her side and pink lipstick smeared on the pillowcase and across her mouth.
Wow.
Her son would ID the jewelry box, and the set of keys in Billy's car were a match to the locks on Lou's front door.
Right.
They arrest him on his outstanding warrants. And they start questioning him, and he says nothing other than, quote, "I am not a killer," end quote. Later, he will tell the Dallas Morning News, quote, "I'm not at all what they're saying I am. I'm a very innocent person. I was not brought up that way," end quote.
Even though I had jewelry on me and the keys.
Deny.
Yeah, whatever.
But it's finally at this point that the police in Dallas and Plano are realizing, holy shit, we have literally hundreds of unattended deaths and piles of police reports about stolen property with some of these people. And they realize this is a serial killer.
Yeah.
We have a serial killer on our hands.
Right.
And the only way to see how deep it went was to go public.
Yep.
So they tell the public, this is what has happened. And all of these people who've lost their parents and things were missing, the wheels start turning.
Yeah.
Now, Billy is indicted and held on a $1 million bond for capital murder and attempted murder for Lou and for Mary Bartell, who positively IDs him. He's the one.
Right.
When police get into the thick of it, they realize they have over 750 elderly female cases of unattended deaths, and Billy had been posing as a home health worker for years. And there's all these families who've said that their mother's things were missing. Their mother's property was gone.
Right.
The family of Dr. Catherine Sinclair comes forward. Her nieces and nephews think she's a victim of Billy, and they contact an attorney, Trey Crawford.
Okay.
He meets with Catherine's family back in 2016 when she's murdered, and they know Billy was her killer based on the evidence of Mary Bartell and Lou Tai Harris. Dr. Sinclair's whole safe was missing from her room in Edgemere, and she'd been out to dinner with her family the night before and was in perfect health.
Right.
Now, there are hundreds of elderly women dying by themselves, and a great number of them were missing their jewelry. So on March 23rd, 2018, police make public the incidents at Edgemere and Tradition Prestonwood, and that there are at least 750 potential deaths, but are they all linked to Billy Chemirmir? And according to Plano Police, Chief Gregory Russian Quote, Chemirmir uses healthcare experience to his advantage, targeting and exploiting seniors, some of the most vulnerable people in our community. This is terribly disturbing, end quote.
Right.
Well, that is about a little too little, too late.
Yep.
Police start working from 2018 backward. And Trey Crawford starts putting the timeline together and calling families and doing research. And this leads to more and more victims. And these relatives are realizing exactly what happened.
Right.
Scott McPhee, whose mother, Carolyn, was murdered in her own home after Billy'd been the replacement home health aide for his father.
Yeah.
He opens the Dallas Morning News and sees that Billy was arrested.
Yeah.
He calls police and says his name wasn't just Billy Chemirmir, but Benjamin Coy Tabata, or whatever the hell he called himself.
Right.
And he knows this because he kept the information on the placement agency. He's got papers with this guy's name on it.
Exactly, yeah.
On April 13th, 2018, police show Scott photos of jewelry. It's his mother's jewelry.
Wow.
And this is when he realizes there was a serial killer in my parents' home every day for 3 months.
Jeez.
And how many other people haven't come forward who had Billy in their home?
Right.
I mean, who could say if he had anything to do with their loved one's death?
Right.
Police call Lauren Adair and tell her that her mother, Phyllis Payne, was a victim of Billy's in 2016. And as the attorney Trey Crawford uncovers more and more, he starts calling the families. He called Mary Jo Jennings about her mother, Leah Corkin, who was murdered on December 12, 2018. Cheryl Kerr's mom, Glenna Day. Police call her and tell her that her mom's death wasn't, quote, a natural death. And I'm sure she's like, yeah. I know.
Duh.
Ellen House French learns that her mother, Norma French, was a victim of Billy Chemirmir because her sister had a friend who was a neighbor to another one of Billy's victims. This is how these people are figuring it out. These people are doing it on their own.
7 degrees of Billy.
7 degrees of Billy.
Yeah.
Diana Tannery learns about her mother's death, Juanita Purdy, from a probate attorney. So the police aren't doing a very good job.
Well, they haven't done a very good job from the beginning.
Yeah, and they're not even, I think they're so overwhelmed, they're not following up and saying, look, you know, we messed up.
Right.
So these poor families are finding out they were, A, right all along, and B, are getting their information from places other than the police contacting them.
Yep. Well, I'd be pissed.
They are.
Man.
On May 15th, 2019, Billy Chemirmir is indicted on 11 capital murder charges, but there's so many more victims. The families finally get together and meet with each other at Ellen French's home. They start Googling cases, and they find out about Doris Gleason, and they find her daughter on Facebook. And Ellen calls her to say, quote, I think both of our moms suffered the same fate, end quote.
Wow.
Then on June 25th, 2019, a lawsuit alleges that an additional 6 victims at the Tradition Prestonwood are connected to Billy. And it also claims that the Tradition Prestonwood failed to provide adequate security for its residents.
Yeah.
The complex has denied those claims.
Of course they would.
On July 23rd, 2019, the Dallas DA's office say, we're going to be seeking the death penalty in the case of Lou Ty Harris. Then in February of 2020, another lawsuit is filed by the families who lost loved ones at Preston Place, saying they failed to provide adequate security for their residents.
Sure.
And also in February of 2020, Billy Chemirmir is indicted on 2 additional capital murder charges in the deaths of Lee Corkin and Juanita Purdy. December 8th, 2020, he's indicted on 3 more capital murder charges in the deaths of Joyce Abramowitz, Margaret Peggy White, and Doris Wasserman. Now, remember, this is all happening in 2020 when the pandemic is happening.
Sure.
So things were moving super slow.
Right.
But on December 29th of 2020, he's indicted on capital murder in the death of Glenna Day. Now, Billy's trial for the murder of Lou Ty Harris is set for February 7th, 2020. Obviously, it's delayed until April 5th of 2021. And in May of 2021, the Dallas DA's office say, we're not going to be seeking the death penalty.
Really?
I think they just want to get him.
Yeah.
And they don't want anybody hung up on the death penalty.
Okay.
Then they finally head to court On November 15th, 2021, Billy's attorney says that all the evidence against Billy in the death of Lou Ty Harris is circumstantial. Circumstantial.
Oh, yeah. It was circumstantial that all that jewelry was in this front seat and that they saw him throw away the box.
Yes, and he's got the box. Yeah.
And he had the keys.
And they have video surveillance of him following her at Walmart.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what? As far as a defense attorney, if that's all you got, I guess that's all you can go after.
Well, hang on to your panties.
Yeah, okay, hanging.
The prosecution says it's a case of stalking, smothering, and stealing.
Right.
By the way, when Billy is charged with murder, the first time, he never asks whose murder they're charging him with.
Oh, really?
I mean, there's so many in his head, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Why ask?
Right.
When the trial begins on November 15th, 2021, it's all over by the 19th of November, 4 days later, and it ends with a hung jury.
What?
One person held out and wouldn't find Billy Chemirmir guilty. What? No matter how many times the judge sent them back to the jury room to deliberate.
I want to know what this person was thinking.
Yeah, well, the families are devastated.
Oh, my gosh.
But they retry Billy again for the death of Lou Ty Harris. One more time.
Right.
Once more with feeling, right?
Yeah.
On April 25th, 2022.
Okay.
Now, by this time, the star witness, Mary Bartell, has passed away. But they played her taped testimony from the first trial, and 3 days later, Billy's found guilty. This time, the jury only took 45 minutes.
Yeah.
He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Good.
Then on June 28th, 2022, the Collin County prosecutors announced 4 more capital murder indictments for the deaths of Marilyn Bixler, Diane Delahunty, Helen Lee, and Mamie Del Maya.
Wow.
On October 3rd of 2022, Billy is tried for the murder of Mary Sue Brooks. She's one of the women he stalked at Walmart. And I kind of know why they picked these, or at least I think I know, because they have surveillance footage of him stalking these women.
Yeah, they've got clear evidence.
Yeah. And they do this. They try him for this murder because they want to have a backup case, just in case he somehow beats the first murder sentence. And on October 7th, Billy Chemirmir was convicted once again and sentenced once again to life in prison without parole.
Okay.
Now, the family members were lining up to give victim impact statements because after the second conviction, the other cases are dismissed. There's no reason for them to tie up the court and do all this, right?
Right.
And as these heartbroken family members have their say, Billy Chemirmir looks straight at them, no expression whatsoever. Nothing.
Cold-hearted.
There are 22 known victims of Billy Chemirmir. He had their silver in his trunk, their jewelry in his Ziploc, and what he didn't have, he had sold to a Dallas gold and silver exchange shop in a strip mall. By the way, they have video surveillance of this as well.
Man.
By the time they're going to court, people who had blood in the crime scene, which they now know is a crime scene, some of they're having DNA testing, and some of it is actually coming back to Billy.
Really?
So there's no question whatsoever.
Right.
But after he's stolen all of these things and taken all of these lives, authorities say he sold off over $91,000 worth of jewelry, which was probably all melted down and sold for bulk.
Sure.
These families are still enraged because think about this. If these deaths were happening, if these unattended deaths where jewelry or property was taken off of bodies, if it was happening to a group of 20-year-olds, say it's on a campus instead of, it's on a college campus instead of on this, luxury retirement campus, police would look into it. And because they're elderly, they didn't.
Right.
And I mean, sometimes the coroner has even admitted that he did his business over the phone with the police or the EMS.
Man.
Because it's an unattended death. It's somebody who's 90, saying it would be physically impossible to attend every elderly death.
That's when attorneys could have a field day with that.
Yeah. There is a website dedicated to these women and men that's run by their sons and daughters. It's called secureourseniorsSafety.org. I will have a link to it in the show notes, but they are working hard in Texas to ensure nothing like this ever happens again.
Wow.
As for Billy, he went to the Caulfield United Tennessee Colony in Anderson County, Texas. And on September 19th, 2023, not even a year ago, Billy Chemirmir was murdered by his cellmate, Wyatt Busby, after an argument.
Wow.
Wyatt beat Billy to death and stabbed him with a pen, like a writing pen. He dragged him through an open door of their cell and into a hallway where he beat him to death while others watched.
Wow, didn't see that one coming.
Billy laid in the hallway a good 20 minutes before anyone was notified.
Well, it's too bad.
Apparently, Billy had said something derogatory and sexual about Wyatt's children. Wyatt Busby was serving a 50-year sentence for stabbing a Houston man.
Wow.
So Billy Chemirmir could handle a little old lady, but not Wyatt.
Yeah.
And honestly, Mr. Wyatt Busby did to Billy what so many family members probably wished they could have done to him themselves.
Exactly.
The daughter of Doris Gleason said, quote, "My mother died in fear. This man did not have a peaceful passing. There's some relief in the feeling that he didn't get off easily," end quote. And to that I say, hear, hear. It's a fitting end for a man such as Billy.
Yep.
But here's the important thing to note. No one really knows how many people he murdered. They were all elderly, unattended deaths. How many did he stalk and kill from Walmart? How many inside their own home while he's working as a home health aide?
Right.
How many other retirement communities did he hit? I mean, he's gone now, and I feel so bad for these families. And again, it's not a serial killer in a college town. That gets press. But I wanted these people to have their story told. And that's why I did this case.
Right.
But that is the story of Billy Chemirmir. And that's all I have to say about that. She is only one, but what if one is all that's needed? Hospice nurse Indy Luce has fallen in love. After caring for billionaire Louis Thornberry until his final breath, she's now engaged to marry the heir apparent of the global tech empire, David Thornberry. But as the divinely marked Indy packs up her old life to begin anew, a sacred promise comes back to haunt her with a vengeance. As an unrelenting spiritual battle unfolds in the shadows, the descendants of those like Indy find themselves persistently lured and ensnared as a relentless surge of evil becomes an unstoppable force. With malevolent entities following her every step, what Indy doesn't know about her family's sacred covenant could tip the scales of good and evil. The follow-up to the paranormal suspense novel Lead Me From Temptation and Book 2 of the Divine Darkness series, Deliver Me From Evil, is now available March 29th, 2024, wherever you buy or download books, or go to chriscalvert.com. If evil prowls seeking someone to devour, can one woman seek and save that which is lost?
You know, there's a special place in hell for three types of murders and things like this. And number one is, you know, obviously older people. The second one is younger people, like kids. And the other one are animals.
Yeah.
Special place in hell.
Yeah.
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 I hope he's enjoying himself.
I will say that there is a law. It's called Maryland's Law, and it's named after Marilyn Bixler, whose daughter found out through Facebook Messenger from another victim that her mother's name was on this list the police had, where her mother's death had been changed from natural causes to undetermined. The law mandates that families must be notified if a death certificate is changed, aiming to ensure that families are informed in a timely and official manner about any changes related to the cause of the death of their loved ones. These women have worked, and men, I don't want to say just women, have worked tirelessly. This website is really incredible. If you've got an older person that's living in assisted living or has a home health care worker in the home with them,
Right.
I urge you to go check out their website. And again, I will have a link to that in our show notes.
Okay, well, let's try to lighten this up just a little bit.
When you were saying, we always say Billy's like on his way down, on his way down. I just have this vision of all these lovely women, the fourth floor girls with a little glass of wine, and they're just like waving at him like, bye, Billy.
See you, pal.
See you, Billy.
Yeah, see you, Billy.
Yeah, see ya.
All right, moving along. Let's do a little bless ya heart.
Well, bless your heart.
All right, this first one I'm calling Happy Meal, Happy Ending.
I don't know what to make of that title.
It's okay.
Okay.
Don't go there.
Everybody else was going there.
A woman working at a McDonald's got a surprise when her stolen SUV pulled up in the drive-thru.
You're kidding.
Yeah. Okay. The victim, Virginia Maiden. Right?
Okay.
She reported the 1995 Toyota 4Runner was stolen, then went to her job.
I used to drive a 4Runner. It's a great car.
Yeah. Minutes later, while working the drive-thru, Maiden noticed her vehicle waiting to place an order.
I mean, can you even imagine?
Oh, my gosh. Police arrested 22-year-old Catherine A. York. She was charged with possession of a stolen vehicle and could be facing more charges after police found a large amount of clothing in the vehicle that still had the security tags on it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, she didn't think that through.
She liked stealing on all levels.
Yeah. So she got picked up.
She was in that drive-thru. She sees her car and she's like, I'll have the number one.
Yeah, I'll have the 4Runner to go, please.
And she's back there.
Yeah. All right, number 2. They racked up some charges.
Okay.
A Canadian mother and her daughter were stopped trying to cross into the United States border with nearly $60,000 in their bras.
What? How big were the bras?
The money was discovered after the duo drove to the American side, and border agents in Detroit inspected their car and found $15,000.
Okay.
During a pat-down, agents discovered lumps in the bras of Mora El Asmar, 51, and her 16-year-old daughter, and found $59,000 in cash sewn into the linings of the undergarments.
Oh, my gosh. That took some work, man.
Well, it's a crime to try to transport more than $10,000 in U.S.
border.
U.S. currency in or out of the U.S.
That reminds me of, what's the Jordan Belfort movie? Wolf of Wall Street.
Wall Street, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That reminds me of Wolf of Wall Street, where they're just taped on and they're getting on the plane going to Switzerland.
Yep. Okay, and finally, number 3, fail, literally. Literally. A college student in suburban Atlanta is accused of faking his own kidnapping to avoid telling his parents he was failing a class.
Oh, God love it. Bless his heart. He just didn't want to tell him.
I know. Authorities said Aftab Aslam, 19, bought a cell phone and texted his parents a story about being kidnapped, then camped for a week at an undeveloped area.
Oh, he was gone for a full week.
But the weather turned cold and rainy, and then he went home.
Oh.
Police said Aslam left home because he didn't want to tell his parents he was failing an English class at Georgia Gwinnett College.
No, yeah. Bless his heart.
I know. Aslam is charged with making a false report and terrorist threats, along with tampering with evidence.
You can take that class over.
Yeah, exactly.
You can take that class over.
Yeah.
God love him. Bless his heart.
Well, I want to know if his parents were more pissed that he was failing English or that he did this.
That he did that. I can guarantee it. If he was gone for a week and they were worried sick about him.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I'd kill him.
Yeah.
And then I'd hug him.
Yeah, bless his heart.
Well, So if you have a bless your heart or you know somebody's heart who needs blessing,
Yep.
all you got to do is go to hitchtohomicide.com where there's a pull-down menu. While you're there, you can also suggest a case,
Yep.
and you can tell us about your brush with true crime. You can give us your own true crime story.
Yep.
That's my amazing husband out there.
And that's my beautiful bride in the booth.
Join us next time on Hitched to Homicide.
Bye, y'all.